Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a warm welcome to each and every one of you. With the blessings of Honorable Founder President Dr. Ashok Chauhan sir, Honorable Chancellor Dr. Atul Chauhan sir, and under the guidance of Vice Chancellor Madam Dr. Balwinder Shukla, and our mentor of AIES, we, AIES, welcome all of you today at this beautiful afternoon of our last session for the 1 month certification course on innovative green technologies and the future. We stand at a pivotal juncture in human history, a time when our planet's health is deteriorating at an unprecedented rate. Climate change, deforestation, and pollution are no longer mere buzzwords, but pressing issues that demand our immediate action. But here's the good news: technology, the very force that has often been accused of driving us towards environmental degradation, holds the promise to steer us away from it. Today, we have gathered here to explore that promise, to look beyond the horizon and envision a future where technology and sustainability coexist. In the following sessions, you will be hearing from industry leaders, researchers, and innovators who are at the forefront of green technology. We will together delve deep into a wide array of topics that are not just theoretical but immensely practical and scalable. So sit back, open your minds, and prepare to embark on a journey towards a greener and more sustainable future. Together, let's build a world where technology serves not just us, but also the planet we call home. Thank you, and I look forward to an incredibly productive and enlightening session with all of you. So, as we begin, I would like to introduce my first speaker for all of you, Dr. Lal Singh, Director, HRG Shimla. Dr. Lal Singh, a botanist by education, founder director of the Himalayan Research Group, consultant for livelihood and gender at JICA aided HP Forestry Project, is a developmental professional having more than 30 years of experience of working with communities in remote and difficult mountain areas of Indian Himalayan region. Dr. Singh worked to strengthen the livelihoods, biodiversity conservation, climate change resilience, and overall development of communities in difficult mountains. Success and popularization of community oriented technology models of rural relevance developed with grants from national and international agencies by Dr. Singh attracted his participation in different state and national level forums, which includes Steering Committee on Volunteer Sector for 12 5-year plan of then the Planning Commission of India, Research Policy Committee of Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education, Dehradun. He is also the member of NMPB, Government of India, since October 2020, and in different technical committees he has participated. He is a member of many different organizations and many commissions and is doing his part on his level. And most importantly, I would like to mention Dr. Lal Singh is also awarded the Jamna Lal Bajaj Award for outstanding contribution in the field of application of science and technology for rural development 2021. We are very honored to welcome you, sir, to this podium, and we would be very honored to hear you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Dewey, for a very elaborated introduction of mine. Basically, we are not in a formal setup like you are in a university or institute, but I would like to mention that the organization I belong, the Himalayan Research Group, that is a non-government organization based at Shimla. And we have one mountain technology center at District Mandi in Himachal Pradesh, from where are most of the field-oriented technology deliveries ensured. And thank you for inviting me for this important course. And I hope the participant will benefit with my kind of intervention and presentation. As I mentioned that Himalayan Research Group is a non-government organization. We work at the grassroots level for technology delivery or a kind of technical solution to the problems the community basically face. And we have a specialization of working in high altitude areas. We do not work in lower altitude areas, but we work in alpine or the temperate zones, not in tropical area. And our interventions are related to the basic needs of the community in remote and difficult areas of mountains in Indian Himalayan regions. And is there any issue? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's all fine.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
I'll be sharing my screen. Bear with me for a moment, please. And are you able to see my screen in a full screen, or still it is in a slide mode? Is it okay?
Sir, you have to do it in the presentation mode. The slides are visible.
I have already done this in a presentation mode.
So it's not showing in the presentation mode.
It is in a presentation mode. At my point, it is. Is it in a presentation mode?
Not at our end, sir. It's not at the presentation mode for us. It's not showing like that.
Okay. Then what is the issue? It will take some time. I suppose you are screening live. Stop sharing. Just a minute. Let me disconnect it again.
Sir, sir, first make it fully screen and then share your
Okay.
screen.
Okay. Let me see. Let me see. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. It is not happening. Are you able to see this? No.
So the slides are not visible as per our IT team, sir. If you could open the PowerPoint in a full screen mode and then share it, then I think we'll be able to see it in full mode.
That is what I am trying to do, but somehow the window is not visible.
So these are the challenges of technology. See, I faced one before entering, and now it's your turn.
Yeah. Okay. Let me do.
Yeah, I think it's working.
Let me do it. Actually, we come across such things very often, and it is there here. But now I share it. Shh. Can you see it now? Can you see the slide, please? No?
So we can see the slides again, but this time again, it's not in the presentation mode. It is just like how a PowerPoint opens.
No, it is from my side. I am sharing it with a full screen. Okay.
So I think we can still continue.
Just a
Like-
minute. Just a minute. Let me try it once again. And I make it in the full screen, right? And in that way, it is not working.
I think we should continue in this way.
Yes, so the slides are properly visible and the entire slide is also visible. So we are able to read everything. So we can just begin in this one only. I think we can go to the slide one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see then. Is it okay?
Yes, it's fine. So just move to slide one. Slide 3 is showing right now.
Again, it is 1 at my place, but how it is 3 at your place, I'm not able to make it out what is happening. Just a minute and show control screen, white screen, go to slide. Is it slide 1 now?
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir, it's showing slide number 3, sir. I think sir, you should do one thing to unshare the slides and again share it.
Just a minute. New share. I did need to screen share.
Yes, sir. It's perfect. It is in the presentation mode now.
It is now in a presentation mode, no?
Yes,
Yes.
it's in the presentation mode as well now.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you very much. And it is a very important topic in a present time that we should talk about the green technologies. And I'll be giving a brief of the very kind of ground level technologies where you can contribute in a big way for the climate change mitigation with the kind of efforts what we have. And the basically in India, we are in a very remote area or in a rural area where most of us, or almost I'll say everybody, work with agriculture. And this is the kind of scenario you see in most of the places, even in Punjab, Haryana, UP. Nowadays, you can see the paddy is coming to a harvesting, and there is a nowadays the color of the field is changing from green to some whitish color or some grayish color. Landscape is happening. And in that case, if we see that in India, we are almost around 64 to 65% people in rural areas, and in Himachal, where we work basically, and here almost around 90% of us are residing in rural areas. And you can just see a kind of scene of the rural area in Himachal. And our villages are on the hill spurs. And this year you might have heard a lot of stories coming from Himachal about slipping of the mountains or the landslides, and the households in trouble because of the lot of rains this season. And in a rural life or in a villages, you struggle on a daily basis for fuel, for fodder or food. And in terms of fuel, basically we use biomass in mountains for cooking, also for keeping our houses warm. At the same time, heating of water, for making food and everything, we need to have some kind of fuel. And at the same time, to sustain the livestock, the women folk, they collect a lot of grass, fodder, and many other things from the agriculture residue, as well as from the common lands, forest, or the trees around. And in terms of food, we look for cereal, pulses, vegetable, milk, and meat. Everything is produced on a daily basis or in a very planned manner in a cropping cycle of Rabi and Kharif, as we used to have these two seasons. And the season what is ending now is the Kharif season, and what we sow during winter time, that we used to mention as a Rabi season. And now, because of different changes in a climate and cultivation practices, or the practices followed by the population or the communities at large, they have introduced different crops and different filler crop between these two major cultivation season of the agriculture. And fuel, fodder, and food in mountains as well as in other areas, we have seen, is the main responsibility of the women to accomplish most of the job. And therefore, these put a lot of burden on the women. And changing climate introduced many new crops which are of short duration and which are the filler crop, as I mentioned, between these two major cropping seasons. And in that case, the burden of the women has increased manifold in rural areas. And at the same time, there is a lot of pressure on the habitat and natural resources for meeting with all the demand of the increasing population, increasing demand of cash and comfort as well. In that case, if we try to analyze the cropping in a way that how it is going, we started working on, agriculture sector long back, almost in 2000. And over a period of time, we have found that people are shifting from high-end market-oriented kind of agriculture crops. There is a lot of inputs related to inorganic fertilizer, inorganic chemicals for insecticide, pesticide, fungicides. And whatever people have been growing in their land, they grow most of the things for sale. And to sell their product in the market, they have to produce, crop of some quality or some color or some standard, and that is mainly maintained with the inorganic inputs. And these crops utilize high quantity of water, for example vegetables, off-season vegetables, and in that case the high end crops of spur varieties of apple, intensive cultivation of apple. For that we need a lot of water, a lot of inputs. They all are market oriented. In that case, because every habitat, every human being is exposed to the inorganic chemicals or pollutants, which ultimately deteriorate the health of the environment and health of the human beings alike. In this way, when we went to the people just to understand the agriculture and explore the kind of practices they are following, then people used to mention that even they have the capacity to buy fertilizer, buy insecticide, pesticide, and high-end inputs in their agriculture and horticulture cropping, but the yield is decreasing year after year, because they are putting more efforts, they are putting more investment, more inputs, but the yield is decreasing year by year. And that can again be explained as per the title of the today's this lecture, that climate change is happening, nobody can deny, and climate change is impacting human beings and biodiversity and the lives on this earth in a similar way. And particularly the climate change, it is estimated that will reduce the yield of most of the crops, major food crops like wheat, rice, pulses, by 20% by 2050. In that case, there is a now very high level of discussion and in a policy forum that how we should go for some climate resilient crop or some eco-friendly kind of practices. And no doubt we had a time in 60s after independence that we were deficient in food grains, and we had to go for a green revolution technologies, which were very highly dependent on inorganic inputs or inputs for the production to feed the high population in the country. And today the father of green revolution, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, passed away around 11:30 today morning itself. And I think he was the person who brought in a change in our food production system, and that's why he was known as a father of green revolution in India. And I personally and from you all um, passes on condolences to his family, and entire nation is mourning his death today. That's a very great loss to the country. And we try to connect to the farmer at the grassroots level and discuss the issues what they have. But as I mentioned, that farmer mentioned, there is almost 62% of the respondent mentioned that there is a very heavy decrease in the yield and the production of the different crops. That may be high-end crops or improved crop, hybrid crop, or whatever they grow. The crop production is decreasing day by day. At the same time, they say that if they are growing something without any inorganic inputs, then there is no production, or if there is any production, that is not sufficient to sustain their requirement of food or requirement of their cash, what they earn otherwise by sale of cash crops like vegetable, fruits, and there are many things they do at the grassroots level in a diversified manner. And then understanding this, that why this decrease is there. At one point, the high end crops which are hybrid and at the same time which are requiring a lot of inorganic inputs and the water. And in that case also, they are very fragile and very sensitive to the changes in climate. And climate change is mainly measured in terms of increase in temperature and very abrupt rainfall and abrupt drought and abrupt spread of the insect pest, abrupt kind of infections of fungal and bacterial nature. And these are very throwing very serious kind of management challenges to the farmer at the grassroots level. And to address these, and then to address this climate change or be more productive in this scenario of climate change, we have to have some innovative green technology solutions at community level, which I am discussing as the first model, where we will talk mainly of a climate smart agriculture techniques, biological pest control, climate resilient crop varieties, and traceability sensor network for environmental monitoring and community-based early warning systems. As you might have been, watching on your mobile phones about the weather forecast, whether it is going to rain today or not, if it is going to rain, how much intensity this would be, whether, as you might have heard, there are the categorization by the IMD that yellow alert, red alert, all these things are very common in nowadays. And those things are only possible because of the sensor network and environmental monitoring in different areas, in different locations by the IMD. And at the same time, there has to be some collaborative approach on data sharing and learning from different places and different organizations or institution in the country or at the international arena. And climate smart agriculture, at least 5 critical components are necessary. In addition to the social and environmental dimension, integrating a value chain based approach is very important, because at the farmers level, if you ask to go for cultivating something without any inorganic inputs or any input which is responsible for the climate change, then people are worried that there is going to be a very, very limited kind of production. And that limited production, if they go to sell in a market in a normal fashion, then they will not be able to get a good return out of it. In that way, the farmers at the grassroots level are demanding that if they have to go for some climate resilient techniques or climate mitigating technologies, then ultimately their product should fetch the market value which is almost equivalent to their cash crops or high-end cash cropping done with an organic kind of setup. That can only be answered if we go for a value addition or a direct to consumer sale model or something. That is what I'll explain further. And securing and enhancing public-private partnership and invest for demand-driven agriculture to make the impact at scale is another kind of a tool to mitigate the climate change. And efficient and affordable technology to reduce emission as well as enhance resilience and adaptation. And that is again, this is an era of technology. Until unless we will use technology even in our daily life or whatever we do, we are not going to mitigate the carbon change, this climate change. Then this is again a very important time to utilize the technology. Then innovating financing mechanism and instruments to especially overcome the barriers to adopt the climate smart agriculture practices and support the last mile practitioners, because this is again very important, and everything is based on finance. Until unless we ensure the producer or the practitioner that there is some assured level of economic return, or the required economic investment, if they have to go for a mitigation technology, that has to be built into the financing system. And here I can cite an example on these climate smart agriculture and practices that you might have been hearing nowadays, that this is the year of millets and everybody is being asked to go for millet consumption, or production of the millet is basically not as remunerative as is a cash crops, like you do some vegetables and other thing, fresh vegetables. But if you do the millet production, then ultimately people whosoever used to have this, they have also left consuming it, because they have a simple saying that they used to have millets when they were grain deficient. Now they don't take, only they take now wheat, rice, or some ultra processed food in cities, metro cities, where you can have burger, pizza, or some high end pastas. These are ultra refined foods basically, and these are nutritionally not that good as millet is, but you can't have millet daily. That's why there is a campaign now to educate the young generation how you can have the millets. But normally in Himachal we are not a millet state, but promotion of millet has further actually put our mainly mountain crops on a back seat further, because they were already categorized as the lesser known crops, like your barley, red rice, kidney beans, amaranth, buckwheat. I think most of the participant might not have listened the name of these crops, but these are the major crops which were being cultivated in a local habitat. But the importance of these crop is that these are mainly grown without any inorganic inputs or any external input, and they were very eco-friendly, they were very climate smart, and at the same time they were also very, very resistant to the diseases and the drought conditions, or the over watering in a field during growing. And in that way, but they were totally out of practice in most of the area because of cropping of cash crops, like your cabbage, cauliflower, tomato. You might have heard the story of a tomato this year. Many became crorepati's, and they earned in millions, just by growing potato for the last 4 5 months. But now again, potato is being sold at a price of 5 rupees or so in a wholesale market. Farmers are crying. But this is all market dynamics, and market dynamics is also delivering the adding to the climate change. And that is also one thing we need to understand, and how we do the things, that is very, very important. And we particularly try to mainstream these climate resilient crop of red rice, kidney beans, barley, amaranth, and buckwheat, and they were having very, very good nutritional qualities. For example, if I talk of buckwheat, and normally it is called kutu also, and Dr. Joy, you might have heard the name also. You used to have this during your some fasting times.
Yeah, fasting time.
Fasting times. Normally, when you do fast, then you don't have to have the cereals. You have non-cereals. This is a non-cereal. And why it is important? Because this has a very good protein in it, one routine protein that prevent development of fibroids in women. And that is a traditional, identified almost hundreds and hundred years of earlier, that at the same time it has a very high concentration of magnesium in it. And when you consume it, the magnesium make your blood vessel dilate, and you do not have the problem of blood pressure. At the same time, because this also contain other micro and minor nutrients in it, which are very, very good for your health. And but now today generation might have heard of a momos, and they have heard of many other things, noodles and other things, but they have not heard of the buckwheat kind of preparation, which are so good in terms of health and nutrition. At the same time, amaranth crop is very good in this special fats, like omega 3, omega 6, and 9 fats. and they are very good for the heart. They are very good for maintaining cholesterol, and at the same time, amaranth is very rich in calcium. And the problem of calcium leaching in women after 40s or so is very high. Then you face the problems of osteoporosis, kind of technically you might have been hearing. But if off and on you have these crops and make these crops as a part of your diet, in that way you enrich your health also. You enrich by cultivating the climate also, and at the same time you enrich people who grow these crops in remote and difficult areas without any external input. These are free from fertilizer or pesticides. Similarly, your red rice is very rich in zinc. And during COVID time, everybody was asked to have a tablet of zinc. But if you have red rice, then ultimately your immunity is already so high that most of you will not be infected with severely affected with the corona kind of viruses. And barley also is highly antiviral, and beans are very rich in proteins. But when we started working on revival of these crops, or a kind of mainstreaming of these crops, then we found that their varieties or their seeds is almost not available and has vanished in villages. And then we went for sourcing of seed from different institutes, or bringing it from preservation of National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. And we collected almost around 111 varieties of 6 crops from different parts, and different champion farmers, we call them, who were having the small quantity of seeds available with them of these crops. Then we made a campaign from household to household in a valley, that these are important. If you grow these, we will do a climate smart agriculture kind of intervention, where you will get a assured market, where you will get a assured buyback, but you need to cultivate. At the same time, it was announced that if you grow these crops, and you will get a premium price for these to promote on your farm. And with this kind of approach, over a period of time, we made people, a new generation of the farmers who were not able to understand when to sow, when to grow, and how to sow the seeds. We went to train them, and we made them understand how to make a nursery of a red rice which is not infected with a disease, and how they can go for a threshing, where you can have a lesser investment of time for threshing. And in that way, and also we try to organize them on side by side to make their enterprise. And with this, we conducted trials of 111 varieties with farmers' intervention on their field without paying them. They were so happy to revive these, and we conducted a trial for the selection, what they wanted to grow. And we made a blind crowdsourcing trial with an international software called CleanMob. And every farmer was given 3 varieties. They were not told about the names or the background of those varieties, and they made to grow those varieties. And then complete farmer cluster of around 500 plus households was asked to give their feedback on almost around 11 parameters, like germination, vigor, plant architect, faster maturity, pest resistance, disease resistance, drought resistance, yield, value in the market, taste, and overall performance, as per their opinion, what they think. And for example, this is a slide. You can see there were 15 varieties of a kidney bean, and they were, almost evaluated by 30 farmers, and each having 3 crisscross combination of varieties, and for 11 characteristic. And this is something very unique, and was done for the first ever time in the history of traditional crop science and the agriculture. And this CleanMob kind of a software will give an output when you feed that data online, that which variety performed best, which variety is second, which variety is at the third number. And then farmers visually saw those differences in their field, and without putting any inorganic input, without doing any spray, or without investing so much of time on weeding and other things, and they selected 3 varieties of beans out of 30 out of 30 variety 15 varieties. And in that case, for all 6 crops, they had now around 18 varieties available with them, which they found that they perform better and their yield is good, there is no disease, and their taste is good, and they accepted those varieties for mass multiplication in their fields. At the same time, people came that they are having a very good variety land race of red rice, which is very good in concentration of zinc, but they don't want to grow that. Then we inquired why they don't want to grow it. They said there is no grain setting at the end of the day, and it is infected with some of the fungal disease, and then there is no grain setting and food is not available. And then we try, as a scientist, we try to analyze that how it is happening, what is this. Many people used to say it is a climate change and that's why this is happening. But sometimes we also pass on the statement like this at the farmer level, and farmer also believe that if some scientist says, some expert says that there is a climate change, that's why it will not happen. But we found that the whosoever complained about the disease and wiping out of the crop with the disease, we found that they were putting nursery of the red rice of this land race in the month of February or March, and they were transplanting that in the month of May. Almost life cycle of the plant is completed in a nursery. When they were uprooting the plants for a transplantation, plant was already almost of 100 days, and it had matured because of low temperature. It will not grow that profusely, but it is grown in sown in quite advance. And then they were not able to understand that they are planting a very mature plant, which is of 90 days. And then there is a lot of injuries at the root level when they uproot it for transplantation. When it is having so much of injuries in the root system, it is infected with the existing flora of the fungus. And by the time it grows to a seed bearing stage, then whole of the plant is engulfed with the infection from the fungus. And in that case, they are not having it. Then we train them in place of a colder zone where you grow this rice variety. You grow your nursery in a small polytunnel or a small protected area, and you plant nursery of around 15 to 20 days. And they started doing this. We trained them and they found that there is no disease. And they found that production is almost 40% more what they used to get. And that is how intervention were made, and they were taught how to control the disease without any chemical or inorganic inputs, which ultimately lead to your climate change or the bad health of the people who handle it and bad health of the soil where it is sprayed or utilized. And these are some of the examples, and these are some of the varieties of these 6 crops. As I mentioned, they selected by choice, and they are producing these on bulk, and they are also interchanging these varieties because somebody says that this is good when you have a harvest, please keep 5 kg of seed of this for me also. That is how the community works at the ground root level in a farmer field. And we further went for validation of all these kind of nutritional attributes, what I mentioned, that there is a zinc, there is a manganese, there is a root, magnesium, and all those things. We try to analyze these in a laboratory, that how and these can be validated. Then we are able to validate that how red rice, amaranth, kidney beans, they have the nutrition profile. And we side by side we develop the infrastructure for value addition. For example, red rice they were selling in a market with around 30 rupees or 40 rupees a kg. Why? Because they were shelling it in a kind of sheller where they have the iron blades. Almost 100% grains were broken, and the red coating of the rice was removed. And it was the only that red coating which has all nutritional attributes like zinc, copper, manganese, iron, and that was removed. Then ultimately you are left with a starch, and you are losing the noble nutrition out of that. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that if we have to go for such intervention which are climate smart, there has to be end-to-end solution that farmers understand that, and directly the consumer gets something he is looking for. But most of the time, consumer don't look for a price; they look for a quality. And many people, after it is a tradition also. Delivery of a baby, lactating mother have to have the red rice. Reason being that has very high concentration of magnesium that will prevent increase in the blood pressure, and high concentration of zinc that will add to the immunity of a lactating mother so that she cannot get some infection, viral and other things. And we installed a machine with the rubber rolls. We fabricated that and customized it in a way that if you shell your red rice in it, then ultimately your red coating remains intact and your grain remains intact. Grain is not broken. And at the same time, there was a lot of problem of the seed availability to the interested farmers. We established a community seed bank where we have all the varieties available for the farmers on a barter basis or exchange basis and not on cash basis. Because if somebody comes, we give the seed. For example, 1 kg seed is given, then at the harvesting time, he or she will return 1.5 kg seed. That is how the seed setup is built up. And also we have a facility where we store bulk for making product out of these crops. And for that matter, there is an open call that there is a pre-decided rate for the rice. Dehusked with husked rice is purchased at 150 rupees a kg. That is almost 4-5 times than the market price what they used to have earlier. And in that way, the interest gone further, and many people came to take the seed, and many people came to pool the surplus crops available with them to meet with their cash returns. And in this way, in our Mountain Technology Center, which we have recently established, as I mentioned in my beginning lines for introduction, that this facility cater to the farmers in a way that they can get the seed, they can pool their seed, they can sell their seed, they can add value to the product. Even what they consume, if they wish, that is to be shelled in a machine, what we have installed for them. They are free to do it. They are not charged for it. And this center was inaugurated on 6th of October 2022. And it is rendering a very good service to the farmer. And now we have come up with a farmer producer company, and that has been incorporated on August 22, 2022 again. And we have a branded product line of these crops. As I mentioned in the beginning that we have to have some value chain for the product farmer grow so that they can get return at par with their cash crops. And brand name is Mountain Grains Transforming Nutrition. And this is a brand of Juni Mountain Farmer Producer Company Private Limited. And this is how we started from scratch. We reached the end stage, and there is a lot of transformation in the agriculture field and incoming of these traditional crop, where there is no inorganic inputs and there is very little requirement of water except for the red rice. All other crops are non-irrigated crops. And most of the varieties are drought resistant, disease resistant. Now, agriculture practice is done in a way that we do not get any nutritional deficiencies in the soil. I'll explain it further how. And this is the one model which is addressing to the climate change mitigation and at the same time, improving health and nutrition of the consumer and the growing farmers. And this is the way how we launched our product line and company in October. And people participated from outside. Large chunk of the farmers, they participated in it. Now question comes that how to meet with the nutritional requirement of the soil to produce the crop. Normally, people used to have a compost preparation by way of animal excreta and mixing the forest biomass, and women had a lot of intervention of collection of this biomass from the lopping of the trees. The women used to climb the trees high up in the forest, and they used to lop trees, and their life was on risk. There are many women who lost their life and at the same time many are handicapped because of this practice. But with the incoming of education and awareness, most of the time now women restrict doing all those things and collect biomass at the floor, and they mix it with animal excreta, and then they allow it to compost outside for a couple of months. Then they take it to the field and they improve the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, major and minor nutrition of the soil. But being this very difficult, and many farmers are now leaving the livestock. They don't want to rear livestock, and because it is a saying, अब हम पढ़ लिख गए हैं तो गोबर नहीं उठाएंगे, so don't want to handle dung. The people feel that handling dung is not a good thing, but that is something not the right way of thinking. But dung is very important, right from your birth till the end. If somebody dies, then you need to have some dung or cow urine as per our religious kind of thinking. But even if we have a child, ultimately during Havana and Yajna and all we do, basically all these things are required. But we taught the most of the farmers in producing a very good compost with a vermicompost. Most of the participant, I think they might have heard about the technology of converting biomass and dung or a kitchen waste to a compost with the help of earthworms. And this technology is called vermicomposting. And vermicomposting significantly reduced nitrogen loss from 10 to 20%, and as compared to thermofilling composting microflora. And this is very important and directly related to climate change. If you allow your dung to be digested by a thermophilic flora like bacteria or fungi outside, then ultimately that will produce methane, and that will exit to the climate and ultimately result in a climate change. And if you convert that biomass with the help of earthworms and digest it, then the emission of methane is reduced, nitrogen escape is reduced by 10 to 20%, that help in mitigating the climate change. And vermicomposting decreased nitrous oxide emission by 25 to 36% and methane emission by 20 to 26%. A higher earthworm density increased carbon dioxide emission by 3 to 14%, but decreased methane emission by 10 to 30%. Vermicomposting decreased nitrogen oxide emission by 40% with higher moisture and by 23% with lower moisture. Vermicomposting also decreased methane emission by 32% and 16% with higher and lower moisture respectively. And this technique is very, very effective. And if you wish to understand how the earthworms work and how many species are there, there are around 3,000 plus species of earthworms which exist. And Indian earthworms, there are around 509 species. And normally we in India use two species, Microdrillus and Megadrillus worms for this vermicomposting. But in a place like where I live in mountains in Shimla and in Himachal Pradesh, we use one species in a big way, that is Icena foetida of earthworms. And it survives at -4 to 40 degrees centigrade and is a surface feeder and is very easy to handle. And dung is the favorite food of this species, and it is something very, very suitable for producing vermicompost from the biomass and the dung, and help in reducing the emission of methane and carbon dioxide, which ultimately result in the mitigation of the climate change. And normally people say that they have some local species available, but local species, whatever are available, they are mainly available deep in the soil. They do not work on the surface of the soil in a biomass or a dung what we have to digest with the earthworms. That's why this kind of specialized species is utilized for it. And you can understand how effective earthworm is in digestion of the biomass. Each earthworm has a weight of around 1 gram. And in 1 kg, there are 1,000 earthworms in that way, in a simple mathematics way. And earthworms double their population in 9 weeks. And 1 kg earthworms will be 2 kg in 9 weeks time. If you give somebody 2.5 to 3 kg earthworms at a farmer level to develop an enterprise of vermicomposting, and then after 1 year, it is estimated that this dose of 2 to 3 kg of earthworms can digest and produce almost 58 metric ton of biomass and dung to produce vermicompost. There are many enterprises in Saharanpur area, in Punjab, Hoshiarpur area, where people have been producing vermicompost on a commercial scale, and they are selling it in tons and tons to the progressive farmers, orchidists, like apple growers in Himachal. And there is one Arunachal enterprise in Arunachal, I think there is one enterprise. They sell vermicompost of around 64 lakhs on a per annum basis. And this is how these smaller interventions, because you can't understand how precious dung is if it can give you returns in crores and in lakhs. And there, it is selling like a hot cake. Even if you see on Amazon, you will see this vermicompost selling in a smaller 1 kg or 5 kg package, and the cost is 70 rupees per kg. And these are the enterprises for the people who can start at the grassroots level. And simply you have to feed the dung and the useless biomass to the earthworms in a systemic manner, and then finally sieve and refine and pack that value-added product into a very high-end product in a market that will give you value in terms of money, at the same time will contribute to mitigate the ill effect of carbon emission by many other activities in the system. And this earthworm produced compost protect plant from diseases and pests. And there is no disease, there is no root rot, there is no flies by application of this vermicompost in your indoor plants. That is how many people they bring it to add it to their indoor plants or in their kitchen gardens, and enrich soil with beneficial microbes and hormones, which act as an antagonist for a pathogenic species and enhance overall growth and yield of the crops by supplying very high degree of nitrogen. If you digest dung with a normal bacterial way, by thermophilic way, which will emit this methane to the climate and add to the climate change. But this vermicompost do not do that. But the nitrogen percentage in vermicompost is 1.5%. And in that bacterial or thermophilic digested dung, it is hardly 0.5%. It is almost 3 times. And if you are adding 1 kg bacterial compost, you need to add only half a kg, less than half a kg, 1/3 of it. And this release nutrients slowly. If you add this to this crop, that impact of nutrition will also be transferred for the next crop in the field. That is how it is eco-friendly and climate resilient and mitigate the climate change at the field and farming level. And it is a very good enterprise for the women groups, self-help groups, or individual women or a group of farmers to sell it as a high-end product in the market. I'm just citing some example of some of the women who after our training are selling this for the last almost now 20 plus years. I have given some figures till 2013. It was handy for me. Otherwise, I had to collate it for 20 till 22 or 23. But this is more or less the same. They earn cash return out of selling surplus vermicompost at their household level. And this vermicompost, we encourage people to prepare and we buy back it. You can see in the picture where somebody, you can see the person just, dusting it with some white substance. It is nothing but it is a lime to adjust the pH. And we are preparing button mushroom casing soil out of it. And otherwise, people collect the forest soil or they buy the peat, they buy the coir from outside market, and lot of transportation cost and lot of cost is required to procure these. But locally, you prepare the vermicompost, adjust the pH with a lime, and steam it and sterilize and pasteurize it at 60 degrees centigrade, and is the best casing soil for mushroom cultivation. And if you have somebody cultivating mushroom in your area or around, you can advise that prepare the casing soil with vermicompost, and your crop will be free of flies. You won't get any bacterial diseases. You get least problem in cultivating a sensitive crops like mushroom. At the same time, this vermicompost can be a potting mixture for a controlled cropping. For example, floriculture. In polyhouses, you cultivate high-end exotic vegetables. There you face a lot of problems of nematodes, insect pests, fungal diseases, bacterial diseases. And if you prepare your bed with the vermicompost mixed with the soil, and you fill the nursery bags or the plant where you make the seed germinate with the vermicompost, you won't get most of these problems, and the growth of the plant is very healthy. And at the same time, when you grow the mushroom and finally you are left with a spent compost, you can further convert it to a vermicompost and add to your agriculture field to grow your cash crops, traditional crops, or other crops where you need not to have any inorganic fertilizer from outside. This is how these enterprises can be linked, that you grow traditional crops, you produce vermicompost, you first sell it to the mushroom grower, and then again convert the spent compost to a vermicompost, add it to your soil, and again you cultivate the traditional crops without any inorganic inputs. These are all interlinked kind of enterprises. And the point I talked of a traceability also, because when we have to develop a product line or something, we need to tell nowadays when it was sown, who had grown this, when it was harvested, and who developed the value, and where it is being done, where it is being processed. You have to have a geographical marker, location marker. That's why I'm showing you the site and the map, how we and where we have been doing all these things, in a transparent manner. Then a buyer is also understood that this is produced in a clean area, which is not having any polluted water or polluted climate. You can just make out of that location, geographic location. And this is the scene of the valley where most of these things we carried out. And these interventions were supported by Jeff, UN, United Nations Environment Program, Department of Science and Technology, supported by National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, Agriculture University, ICR, and International Alliance of Biodiversity and CGIAR, International Institute for Agriculture. In that way, we shared all these data, and they also guided us, supported us, developing these things in a way so that now these experiments or these interventions are being discussed at the international level. No doubt, our interventions are contributing to the global, this national agenda of climate change mitigation. But at the same time, that smaller intervention by a remote farmer, that is at a local level, making a global impact. That is how we need to think in terms of technology, in terms of the service, in terms of the market. And if I come to the second point, that is fodder development. Again, you see that whatever we don't consume as a crop and whatever we don't, utilize as any other fuel or something, most of these things are fed to the livestock as a feed. And then we say that we are not getting good milk, our livestock is not yielding good. You can see I'm showing a picture of livestock. There is nothing before them to eat. There is a very, very serious constraint of fodder. And then women has to climb the trees, you can see. They have to risk their lives, collect the leaves and fed. And they can also collect some limited quantity. And now modern generation has almost wiped out population of their cows and buffaloes and sheep in their houses. And most of the time they go to a market, they have all these things from the fellow neighbors, whosoever is doing these practices. But this is going to be disastrous for the agriculture sector, for the sustenance of human being and sustaining the human population. If somehow any child lost the mother, then ultimately it is the cow milk which make him or her survive. And if we do away with the livestock, then ultimately we are going to have a very difficult time. And our milk production and milk consumption is very, very low in comparison to many other developed countries. We need to look for this, and only fodder development can have a twin objective here. One way, that will give us a nutritious milk or milk products. At the same time, if we grow fodder trees or plant fodder, that will mitigate the this climate change. And we have a model that in addition to your agriculture crop, you grow a specialized high yielding fodder varieties on the corners of the field, right? And in that way, they do not compete with the crop, and they produce green fodder which remains green throughout the year. Otherwise, we are feeding a livestock some grass or some weed which is not known for the nutrition or the regular production, and it is just something that you are feeding something. But whether it is nutritious or sufficient for maintaining the livestock nutrition or not, that way you do this and you get round the year green fodder, and livestock health is maintained, you get a very good quality milk that has a very good fat into it, and women has to invest less time in collecting fodder. And also you can convert your residues of the crops into a silage. You can see in a picture that this with a chaff cutter, you just chaff the maize stems and convert it to a silage. Silage, normally we called it as a chare ka achar banana. The way you make the pickles, it is just like that. You pickle the green fodder and use it during the lean period when you have a deficiency of fodder, and it is very rich in proteins, and you can have a very good production of milk and maintain the livestock health. And this is how that when you collect the green fodder and dry it and store in houses, you might have heard many villages are burnt with a fire. They in particularly in mountain areas, dry fodder and fuel, these are the major fire hazard for wiping out the villages, and during the winter especially. And at the same time, when it is green, it will not catch the fire and also maintain livestock health better way in comparison to your dry fodder feeding. The next important technology is the related to energy sector. And particularly, I have just made this in reference to the high altitude areas in mountains. We have around 8 to 10 million households in Indian Himalayan region. And everybody use fuel wood or a dung in Ladakh area and cold desert area for keeping their houses warm and heating water. You can see the women collecting fuel wood. They invest almost their 40% time in collecting fuel, almost 5-6 months, to keep them warm during winter. And there is a lot of smoke emission of this, and which affect their health also. And by statistics, you can see Himachal, Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, Uttarakhand, they have a very high dependence on these fuel wood and dung. You can see how the fuel wood is stored in houses. If somehow there is a fire, there is no chance. You are sitting on a bomb. The once it explodes, then ultimately all of the village is wiped out. And the women, you can see they leave in the morning in Ladakh and they come in the evening with a basket at their back full of dung. And they store this for the winter so that they can keep their houses warm during winter. We innovated a local solution, mountain solar water heating system and mountain room heating system. And these are the fabricated by the local people, and you can heat the water up to 90 degrees centigrade in our water heating system. Why we develop this? Normally, what system we get from the market for a solar water heating, that runs on a flowing water or from a tank, water flows into it. But in mountains, water freezes during winter, then ultimately there is no flowing water available. Then in that case, you have to have a system which you can fill manually and you can drain it during night. That is a main requirement. And this is the system developed by the local artisan of the local material. And the room heater also, it is fixed on the south facing wall. It heats the air, and there is a siphon, push the heated air inside the living space. And from the room at the bottom, the cold air is sucked out, and there is a regular siphon throughout the day. And this increases the temperature of the room by 20 degrees centigrade. For example, outside temperature is 4 degrees centigrade. If you have this system installed on outside, then ultimately your room temperature Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but I would like to ask now, just because
Yes.
next speaker is also
Yes.
joined.
Yes. All right.
If you can wrap it in the next 5 minutes.
Yes, I can very well guess from your expressions, you know, the time is going to up.
I'm very
This is,
sorry for
this
it.
is this is how the women have been utilizing it. And we tested it on a very remote location in the Ladakh for the performance. You can see the red peaks. These are the temperature of the hot water and the green peaks of the cold water. This way, this bunch of red peaks is the day, and the gap between these two peaks is the night. And you can see that how it is efficient and adding to the different SDGs and saving. This is the system what normally you get in the market, but most of the time it is very cost intensive and do not work in the mountains. And this is demonstrated to the different level, and Secretary Science and Technology is seen in this picture, and it was displayed in Pune. And how this is fabricated, this is the way, you know, people, rural artisans, they fabricate. And this is a hill spur. I'm showing a population who has been utilizing this system. And this system mitigate around 2.5 ton of carbon per annum per system. And we have installed till now 1500 systems. And you can imagine the volume of carbon dioxide mitigation with this, and saving 40% of fuel wood and 40% women time. And we have also a very good publication, which is in this link I have shown in green, you can see. Another point is of a medicinal plants, and where medicinal plant nowadays people are going for Ayurveda formulation, and growing medicinal plant has come a new kind of vocation for the farmers in mountains and many agriculture area. And we orient people, make them into a group, made them to grow very high-end product, high-value medicinal plants of Indian Himalayan origin, which do not grow any other area. They fetch them very good price and also help in maintaining their health at the local level by way of traditional formulation as a decoction, kada, tea, and other things, where they don't have the fever or the viral infection, and also very effective during COVID time to maintain the fever and the immunity. And these two species we do is Charaita and Kadu, locally we call it Picorrhiza corua and this Schwarzschild cordata. And mushroom cultivation is another adventure, as I mentioned you earlier. And the challenges what agriculture and the system is facing is like public distribution system is making us, you know, nutrition deficient, because we have a monotonous food like rice and wheat, and cultivation of fruit and vegetables in requiring a lot of inorganic inputs. And even now, after having sufficient food, we have a report that 74% can't afford a healthy diet, because that is another kind of a story we need to understand. Despite having so much of input, so much of production, so much of grain, we are not having a healthy diet. And therefore these filler crop has to come and will help in maintaining nutrition in a time to come. And enterprise has to deliver. For example, our enterprise is rotating around 40-45 lakh per annum in a small valley because of our intervention in terms of economics, that attract people for the technologies and for the intervention, which are climate smart, which are, you know, mitigating climate change. And people are earning money, they are happy, they are going for the intervention what we propagate, and which are climate smart and climate change mitigating. And this way, thanks for the opportunity, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I would definitely like to congratulate for all the achievements, for all the startup, for all emancipating everything that you have done. But I have few questions. So, number one, this has been recently in news, I think just happened 2 days before, that Norman Borlaug Award is given to Dr. Swati Nayak. She has been given to develop a rice variety that is drought tolerant and one that is flood tolerant. So do you will you consider those varieties under climate smart agriculture? And do you think that it
Yes.
is foresighted?
Yes, that is why she is awarded. She works with AED, and that is something very important at this time, because we are having a situation most of the time. There is more rain in a shortest possible time that flood the area. We need something which survives in that condition. That is very important. And at the same time, we are having a condition, there is no rain for a very long time, ultimately a drought kind of situation, because all these gaps needs to be filled with something and some innovation. And this is a variety which ultimately leads to overcome these conditions. That's why the award has come. I also follow her, and I also saw her story. This is something very, very important. All these innovations are going to be very, very important in the time to come to maintain supply of food.
Another question. You have mentioned about certain varieties of mountainous food that like that can be incorporated in our daily diet. So, say just for an example, kuttu you have said, right? Black buckwheat, we say it there. So, can we eat kuttu every day and we can avoid wheat forever? Is that a
No,
possibility?
no. That's why I said that you should have it, because there was a tradition having these on a special occasions or occasionally. The first, they are not available in that much of quantity that you can have these days. And when we used to have this on a specific day, that was a booster dose for us for a year time. That you consume it once, you are given a booster dose, that you will have benefit of the nutrition what this particular grain contains. But if you have, then ultimately you will face a lot of problems in digestion. You cannot have these coarse grains or
Great.
non-cereal crops as a staple on a daily basis.
Last question. So just because I have been a part of it, so I have tried eating red rice and even black rice as well.
Yes.
But how would you like to comment upon the economic feasibility of having such grains? Reason being, red and black are actually expensive, and I think maybe I can afford it, maybe you can afford it, and maybe few people others can also afford it, but many would not be.
Again, I didn't say it here on this platform, because we have to have these specialized crop as medicines, right? You have these, for example, once a month, or if you have more cash crunch, you can have it 3 months, once a 3 months, or twice a year, because that gives you a kind of concentration of natural nutrition, which is 100% absorbed. Otherwise, you have, for example, zinc tablet on a daily basis. Almost everything is not accepted by the system; it is excreted. But if you have these naturally fortified foods, for example, then your zinc requirement by one dose will be met to a level that you don't require that at least for next 3-4 months, because this is how you have to have these on a interval basis, and not as a normal food but as a specialized food having some specific nutrition or specific nutraceutical properties.
So it's basically everything that we were taught earlier was actually with a certain purpose, but we actually don't follow it right now. We are just
Yes.
too much towards that 2-minute Maggie thing.
Yeah, but if you have Maggie on a regular basis, what will happen?
Again, that's also not happening. So everything has to be balanced, I'll say, right? Everything has to be balanced, and similarly, they were taught in a certain manner. And like, and add on from my side, if we are able to propagate that why something was done in a certain manner, then we will be able to convince this upcoming youth generation more as compared to something like कि ऐसे ही होता है, ऐसे कर लो.
Yes,
That
because
will work more.
I mentioned I heard and mentioned in one of the FAO meeting that this is a very high time when farmers needs to be oriented with the traditional wisdom. Otherwise, we will have to see those traditional wisdom on a museum or somewhere in
Indeed.
sculptures.
Indeed.
Ultimately, we have to go for all these practices to be practiced by the younger generation of farmers.
Indeed, sir. Thank you so much. And this was really wonderful. I really like the way, I would definitely like to congratulate on the presentation, but at the same time, I really like the way you talk. You were very fluent. You were very, very, very fluent and very comfortable while speaking.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I
Thank you
hope
so much, sir.
your participants are benefited out of this. Thank you.
Definitely, sir.
I will leave. I have another meeting. I'm already behind schedule for that.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir, for joining. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Thank you.
Now, to all my participants, we will move forward. Let me introduce my next speaker, Dr. Bharat Settipalli. He is the co-founder and director of technology and product development at Leeds Nextech. He's a startup enthusiast with 10 years of experience in product development. Prior to Leeds Nextech, he worked as a chief manager IT at Leeds Connect and supported the development of SaaS-based agri-value chain platform. In the past, he had experience working in agri-tech startup and started his professional career as a co-founder and CTO of a location intelligence startup based out of Delhi. His area of expertise is in microservices and cloud-native architectures, distributed systems, and development of big data pipelines for analytical systems. His personal interests are in the development of advanced geospatial systems, application of Earth observation and geospatial data to solve real-world problems. He holds a master's degree in remote sensing, and we are very, very happy to host you, sir. Over to you, and we would be lucky to hear you. Bharat sir? Bharat sir, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm audible, I hope.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry
sir.
for that. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us, Leeds Nextech especially, and representing Leeds Nextech. So a small correction here. I don't hold a doctor's degree, so it's just Bharat
I'm
Setpalli.
so sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no issues. Anyway, so before getting into the talk, I just wanted to congratulate Amity University for arranging such a wonderful certificate, 1 month certificate course, and especially making Leeds Nextech part of this event. It's such a honor for us. So part of this event today, I'll be talking about my topic. So let me allow to share my screen and the presentation.
Yes,
Yeah. I hope it is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I'm Bharat Setipalli, co-founder and director technology and product development at Leeds Nextech. So today we'll be discussing about development of IoT and drone analytics driven omnichannel and smart geospatial platforms. So the agenda would be we'll be talking about the basics of IoT under Internet of Things, IoT components, IoT architecture. So we understand IoT analytics and applications, drones and drone mapping. So we'll move on to drone analytics and its applications. Then we combine both IoT and drone analytics and how to develop geospatial platforms using IoT and drone analytics. And also I'll talk about the platform which we are using developed at Leeds Nextech, that is a smart geospatial data pipeline. We'll also go through some of the use cases which we have been delivering, and then we'll be open for the Q&A session. So first, let me just give the standard definition of Internet of Things. I hope many of them already aware of it, but just for the sake of going through that again, I'll just give the definition of Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is a system of interrelated computing devices, right? So the devices can be mechanical and digital machines. It can be anything, objects or animals or people, anything, which can be connected, right? So with the help of a unique identifiers. And these devices or sensors can transfer the data over a network, right? So we'll go into the details of each and every component while going to the presentation. So this network will be enabling these devices or sensor to transfer the data without requiring a human to human or human to computer interactions. So you can see a source image I just kept it. So these are the sensors or multiple devices connected over the network. You can see that web of devices again connecting to the cloud and then the data streaming or analytics. So we'll see all the the connections, how this actually establishes how the device will be able to communicate, how we'll be able to ingest the data to the cloud or edge computing, and we'll get into the details of that. So what are the actual components of IoT, right? So when we talk about IoT, if you get into the details, actually, there are 4 distinct components majorly. So one is the sensors or devices. So this is the starting point of any IoT ecosystem, where actually the data gets generated in part of the environment, right? And the most important component, of course, is the connectivity part. So without that, of course, the devices cannot ingest the data or transmit the data. So the connectivity is a very critical component of it. So the connectivity, so there are various communication protocols which are used to transfer the data from the devices to the cloud or over to the backend services. So it can be like using cellular networks, satellite networks, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and LoRaWAN. So there are some protocols which will be, discussed, like MQTT protocols or AMQP protocols, which are used in the backend for communicating or creating the connectivity between these devices and the cloud services. So the next important component again is the data processing part. So because the devices have been generating billions of data records, and a lot of data gets streamed to the cloud. But so end of the day, the data has to be processed, analyzed to generate some insights, right? So otherwise the data is, so you've been generating huge billions of records of data, but it's not making any sense. So processing is a very critical component of generating the data sets. So on the cloud or edge, because the advancements in the cloud computing and the infrastructure of the cloud made the systems softwares to generate analytics or insights or process the data at the edge level. So that is near the devices. So we'll also talk about a little bit on that part. And the final component is the user interface part, where the user can interface or connect or manage these devices over a mobile application or a web dashboard. So that's on the component side. But so what is the IoT architecture looks like? So there are various architectures or various architectural patterns or design patterns. You can build the IoT systems, but if we take the standard architecture of an IoT, so we can go with the three-tier architecture. We can of course go more into entire architecture. Microservices also can be brought into picture, but we will talk about a basic standard three-tier architecture. So if it's divided into three layers, like the perception, where the sensors or devices are existing, network layer, and application layer. So in the application, again, the cloud, and as I mentioned earlier, so edge computing. So this is because of the infrastructure availability, so there are quite possible that you can do the computation at the edge level. So a small diagram which is giving the idea about the architecture. The actuators are the devices which can control the motions, or let's say you want to interface with something, you want to give some command, and then that command to be executed on the device side. So these actuators will help to do that actually. So in sensors can be part of the device also. For simple examples, a mobile device have multiple sensors, right, which is a part of a device. And these sensors can be connected to a Raspberry Pi, which is on the maybe utilities or a manufacturing unit or a plant which is producing maybe chemicals or micronutrients for the crop thing. So you can control the devices from the remote areas through an internet gateway, and the computations also can happen on the edge if required or on the cloud. So that's how the architecture is laid out. So if you get into the details of each and every layer, right, the perception layer, which actually where the sensors or the device lie on, right? This is the layer where the sensors are placed on, and the data generation will happen in this layer. So the data can be generated from multiple sensors connected to the device, or multiple devices within the network. So as I mentioned, actuators are also existing in this layer only. And the network layer, of course, which again, we in the initial also we talked about network layers, which is a critical component to establish the connectivity between the sensors or devices and the cloud or the backend services. So this will help us to transfer the data from the to and fro between the sensors and backend systems. Application layer. So application layer is the interface layer where the user interacts with it. This can be again controlled. So it's for controlling the devices or managing the devices or performing some analysis or accessing the data from the sensors or devices. So we touched upon the components of the IoT and then architecture of the IoT. So what are the actual IoT applications? Where actually we can use IoT, and what kind of analytics we can perform using IoT, right? So I hope everyone is aware of, so this is a very basic example when we talk about IoT is connected cars, right? So there can be many ways where cars or automobiles, any vehicle can connect to the internet. So it can be through dash cams, or it can be through infotainment systems, or even the connected gateway. So connected gateway is again a network gateway, which we discussed earlier. Using that also, the cars can be connected to the internet. So now once we have these IoT devices made available in the car or a vehicle, so what kind of data actually we can collect, right? So the data of accelerators, brakes, speedometers, or wheels, fuel tanks. So any kind of a device, if you wanted to monitor, we can collect the data so for various reasons, like for monitoring the performance of the driver or for vehicle health. A couple of use cases, if you see our applications, if you see to increase the fuel efficiency and reduce costs, and and the most important is monitoring the behavior of the driver, of the children, or any specific any person. But of the application, this specific use case makes more sense because parents can monitor the driving behavior of the children's, and also the important aspects, any car crash happens or any collision happens, that can be immediately, it can generate alert to friends or family members over a network, and they can get a notification from this one, which can immediately they can avoid such some risk, or they can immediately approach, or they can take some measures on it. And predictive and preventive vehicle maintenance, of course, is also one of the applications of this in connected cars. So again, this is also very generic. Of course, everyone might be aware that. So after Google, Amazon democratized the technology, so connected homes also become very common, or norm. So where every device these days is connected, or of course LG has started long back in 90s of establishing or making the devices smart devices, and every day the devices are getting better and better and getting more smarter with the help of this Internet of Things, right? So in these days, most of the devices have some way of mechanism of connecting to your mobile phone through a network, and then you can operate your ACs, you can operate your refrigerators, you can operate your TVs, you can operate your bulbs. So this way, of course, the whole topic also, it makes sense of green technology, right? So we'll be able to save a lot of energy. Unwanted use of energy consumption can be avoided with this one. But there are other use cases also, of course, apart from that. One is like, temperature controls, hydroponic systems. Hydroponic is also one of the latest emerging, technologies happening across. So in that also, of course, IoT devices are playing a crucial role to manage the entire garden, water supply, the pipes and all. Even the smoke detectors, of course, can also be part of this IoT systems. And the one more important application is the security systems, like door locks, cameras, water leak detectors, of course, fire detectors. These are also part of the IoT applications of in connected homes. So like automatically, as I mentioned, automatically turning off the devices, property managements, finding any miss key, like, there are various use cases. Actually, you can even, if you, some people having pets can have a IoT device for tracking the pets, maybe a cat or a dog or anything, or even they can use this device in a wallet or keep in some important items, and then they can keep tracking using their mobile applications. And of course, daily tasks like vacuum cleaning and making coffee. So there are a number of use cases. I mean, we can't cover anything, so people can think of anything and then start ingesting this device and making it communicate with over a network, and then start monitoring using a mobile application. But these are the couple of applications where in connected homes IoTs are being used. And one more important, of course, the application is in smart cities. Like, governments are like enormously, I mean, like they're using IoT applications and day-to-day activities, like, in urban planning, infrastructure maintenance, for again, the environmental aspects as well. So if you talk about the actual use cases of applications, like measuring air quality and radiations, energy, monitoring the energy, like, with smart lighting system, of course, everyone, so we might have observed in, like, highways, the lights have been maintained with the proper, like, let's say it's 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. in the evening, so you can see the lights will get on automatically. Or if there's too much of traffic, or if there's no traffic. So there are various ways we can control the devices once we have IoT enabled in that. And detecting the maintenance purposes, and parking management. So parking is also one of the major applications or use cases where IoT can be used in, like, commercial spaces, or even shopping malls, or even some third party, like, parking places. The parking can be managed through IoT. And of course, smart buildings, as just mentioned, smart buildings, like any commercial buildings, IoTs can be used for different operational efficiencies, reducing the energy consumption, maintenance cost, and utilizing workspaces more efficiently. So these are the more of industrial applications. If you start with the manufacturing, so in enterprises, IoT can be used like in manufacturing for predictive maintenance, for again to reduce the downtimes. And wearable technology, of course, for the worker safety. So I mean, I personally worked in one of the projects in L&T where we worked like the IoT devices are kept on the workers' helmet for the safety and monitoring the real-time tracking of the workers. Even in fact, there are dumpers, trucks, excavators can in real time can be monitored. And like there is maybe a cement mines, or it can be any mine. All the network of vehicles can be monitored and efficiently planned in manufacturing aspects. So, and of course, machine failure, as I mentioned, like, you can track if any machine is failed or it's not performing, or there is any specific part has been the issue, that can also be immediately, understood. I mean, we can figure it out that what is the reason for the failure, and then can be efficiently planned. So helmets, wristband, of course, in the other aspects of potential hazards also this can be applied in manufacturing. Of course, even there's one more use case that is in the well-being, fitness, even a common, we can like wristwatches for monitoring the vitals of the particular person. Or so this IoT can be used. It can be in the industrial application, of course, for the workers, or it can be a consumer level. Anyone can use that technology, right? The automobile side, of course, for robotics, manufacturing, again, maintenance, industrial sensors for generating a 3D images and diagnostics and troubleshooting. Automobiles are being using this one. And again, if we talk about logistics and transports, how they are using IoT, like in supply chain management, inventory management, fleet management, and schedule maintenance at the commercial level and industrial level, and tracking of assets and optimizing fuel consumption, and controlling refrigerated containers, controlling the temperature, and routing. Of course, supply chain managers are using for the routing and rerouting algorithms. So this IoT is, of course, helping them, efficient monitoring the entire routing and efficiently. Even in this scenario also, they can save on the fuel, or even if there's any vehicle, drivers, they can track the vehicle. Or if a driver is stopping the vehicle and sitting somewhere, or he's taking a long path, they can generate an alerts, and then with the help of geofencing, they're entering in some unwanted territory, so they'll be able to monitor and track it. So there were various use cases. So we're just touching or scratching the surface only. So it's like you can think of a number of use cases and start applying those based on different requirements, right? So that's on the IoT side, right? So if we move on to drones and drone mapping, so of course this is also one interesting example. Like drone is also kind of, with the help of IoT, I mean, you're able to enhance the performance or the operational efficiency of drones. So drones, if you talk about drones in a very basic sense, it's like these are like a simple flying objects that can be controlled remotely, right? So what is interesting about them is that they can capture the data, and then we can use the data for different analytics purposes that we'll be talking in detail. But of course, not only for data capturing, drones can be used for various purposes, like surveillance, where even for an entertainment purpose, of course, people are using drones in capturing the events, like marriages, or various events that they're using for consumer level also. And if you talk about the other applications, like agriculture, so for monitoring crops, crop acreage, crop classification, like yield estimation, the various use cases which we'll deal in further. We'll talk about that. And especially like if there are sensors, like pressure sensors and thermal sensors, which can track weather data and then start helping in predicting natural disasters, crop planning, etc. So the technology again, so as we spoke about the technologies and the advancements in technology in IoT, of course the same technology made drones democratized, and then with the help of this one, we start the drone applications has increased enormously. So one of the areas of drone is like applications of drones is drone mapping, where it's like a process of data collection, of aerial data collection using drones. So in drone mapping, or the photography and drone photogrammetry are the main categories. If we talk about like in LiDAR scanning is also one of the applications. So what are the stages of drone mapping, right? So drone mapping majorly has data acquisition, data processing, and data analysis. If we go one by one, so if we talk about data acquisition, right? So data acquisition is the first stage of drone mapping. So there is various sensors in drones. Drones are like they're like flying objects, but these drones are fitted with multiple sensors. If we talk about like a couple of sensors, like RGB is a very basic sensor where you can capture the RGB images. But there are like multispectral sensors and hyperspectral sensors, thermal sensors. So every sensor has different applications in remote sensing, and then so we'll talk about that in detail later. So for any specific flight plan, like so when any company wanted to or fly a drone, so they have to start doing the flight planning. So what is exactly area they wanted to cover, what exactly they need to capture. So all the details has to be planned very well. How much distance the drone has to fly, the entire path has to be fed. So there are various flight planners available in open source, or one can build their own flight planners. So we at Leeds Connect and Leeds Next Tech are using Audio Pilot. So there we can plan our, so we have used drones extensively in our research purposes, and also we delivered many projects for government nodal agencies in yield estimation and agriculture use cases. So we plan first, the process of acquiring drone data is to plan the area, deploy the field team. So there's a smart planning is required, because end of the day, the efficiency is required in the, deploying drones and capturing the drone data. Cost is also involved, so smart planning is required. So that's why we need to first have the area of interest to be captured, where we wanted to fly the drones and then monitor it. So this is one of the applications, and also you can control the drones using sensor with the remote control devices, which is available, where you can disarm them, arm them, you can pause it, and you can take it back there from the point of launch. So there are various controls available in the remote, through which the drone operator will be operating the drones. So if you see in the interface, the flight path, actually what the drone is, the trajectory it is taking, and then how the drone is capturing the data and then coming back. So once this is fed into the system, the drones, again using the different communication protocols, the flight planner communicates, and then the drone using the remote. It can be automated, or it can be semi-automated, and the drone deployment starts, and the drone data capturing will start happening. So this is our in-house drones, where we have used for one of our use cases or projects. If you can see, there are various drone types, like, when we do vertical takeoff and landing, VTOL drone, we call it multi-rotors, quadcopters. So different applications are there. So one of the major applications, of course, is spraying drones. These are farmers in agriculture. This is one of the major applications farmers are using for spraying fertilizers or micronutrients using spraying drones. But the other applications are like, drone for data capturing and then surveillance and monitoring. So once the drone data is acquired, the other the step is for data processing, because the drones can capture the raw data in form of images, be it like RGB images or multispectral images. Every image has multiple bands based on the sensor type. So we need to process the data and do some ortho rectification using ground control points, and we have to generate multiple layers of data sets. So once this processed data is available, the analytics will happen on the analysis ready data sets. So after processing, we get the ARD data sets on which we perform the analytics. So data processing, so at Leeds Next Tech, we have in-house data processing algorithms to process the data in real time. Because there's a huge amount of data gets generated especially in drone data, drone acquisition. So we need to have a robust algorithms to process the data in real time. And also, of course, storage is also one of the important aspects we need to consider in drone data. So this is the processing stage, where we also, at the time of drone data capturing, if you saw the flight path earlier, right? So here actually we also generated GCPs, ground control points, on base of which we ortho rectify the images, so that we can get a GeoTIFF images out of it. So this is one of the intermediary process of, we need to feed the GCPs along with that image dimensions, and then what various type of images or data types you wanted to generate. So in the next slide, I'll just show you. So this is the data processing. So we have in-house the platform to process the drone data sets. It can be RGBs, it can be multispectral, it can be any kind of sensor we can process the data sets. So you can generate various outputs based on the different use cases, right? So digital elevation map, 3D mesh, and mesh-based texture. The DEM is used for various purposes, like volumetric analysis or different structural analysis. You can use DEM. And of course, in remote sensing also, there are various use cases in DEM. Of course, in disaster, like a flood modeling, various models, DEM, the elevation is very important aspect or parameter to be considered. So this is the processed image, for analysis, like orthophoto. As I mentioned, orthophoto is one of the first outputs where we use it for analysis ready data for analytics purposes. So you can see that that image which is processed, and you can overlay with the base map and see the exact positioning. And you can generate, of course, in the agriculture, of course, crop health, for monitoring the crop health. And so there are various vegetation indices which we can create. So this is one of the vegetation index, like NDVI. So we can generate from processed image. So this is more of a, you can see the variation in the NDVI. So it ranges from -1 to 1. Based on that, you will be able to track the health of that specific land parcel. You can see the variations in the image. So this is a very basic example I've given, but there are various use cases which we can use it, for agriculture. When we talk about first, like the crop classification. So we also have done an exercise. Our innovation team has done an exercise for wheat hair counting using high resolution drone images. That is one of the applications, right? So we can use it for crop classification, accurate acreage mapping, crop health monitoring, yield estimations. In disaster management, we can use it for monitoring or surveillance, real-time damage or loss assessment, of course, delivering emergency supplies, extinguishing fires, be it forest fire or wildfires, airlifting the victims of any specific disaster or any specific location. So we saw the IoT part. We have seen the drone part. So we need to combine these various data sets, be it like a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach, to be able to build geospatial platforms for various applications. So we'll talk about actually the geospatial platforms, how you can leverage these data sets and build these platforms for various analytics. So what exactly, before getting into the details of that, we'll try to understand what exactly the geospatial platform, right? So geospatial platform can be a software, can be a tool that can ingest, process, analyze the spatial and non-spatial data. So that includes Earth observation data using remote sensing satellites. It can be from unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, IoTs for in-situ observations, or it can be from mobile applications which were used for field data collections, right? So these platforms combine the capabilities of the data, of course, process data sets, which is analysis-ready data sets, and the computational models. That can be mathematical models, statistical models, machine learning models, or any kind of computational models for providing insights in climate, hydrology, land use, ocean, and environmental analysis, right? So these are the applications of geospatial platforms, or you can say a geospatial platform can be used for. So when we say smart geospatial platform, what is the difference between just a geospatial platform or a smart geospatial platform? So we'll be able to leverage the data sets generated from different sources, right? So if we're able to fuse the data sets, then we'll be able to generate more insight. For simple example, let's say we have an IoT device which is monitoring, let's say maybe it's monitoring of water level, right? So we saw that there's a threshold has been crossed, right? So immediately we can it can generate an alert, and we can start seeing those alerts in the geospatial portal. It can be used for early warning systems, right? It can trigger alerts for evacuation purposes or different. So the government or disaster preparedness or NDRF or any SDRFs can take measures based on this kind of alerts which are generated in real time using IoT data sets, right? So this kind of alerts can help in better planning in terms of disaster management. So not only that, when you fuse these data sets, like let's say you have a Earth observation data sets using remote sensing, like various sensors, or even drone data sets, and you have a in-situ observations being generated from field data sets. So you'll be able to come up with better insights, right? Be it in yield estimation, or be various applications, be in agriculture or disaster management, or be it smart cities, or any specific use case you take it. You'll be able to leverage the full potential of that when you combine the data sets and come up with a specific model which can solve that specific problem, right? So when we say smart geospatial platform, that platform should have the capability to fuse the data sets and enable the users to compute and come up with the analysis which can be used for different decision support. Then we will be able to build the decision support systems. So these decision support systems can help the policymakers or researchers or governments in decision making, right? By generating insights. The insight has to be very precise, and then be able to create some value to them. So that's why the smart geospatial platforms makes more sense, or it is more important to consider, rather than just a traditional data sets where you can insert any data sets and then it's not making sense. So of course it's up to the user or a developer or any organization to build this smart geospatial platforms, but in general we are talking about the capabilities of smart geospatial platforms. So it's Leeds Next Tech. Actually, we have been working on building the geospatial data pipelines for various use cases. We have worked, so we have developed a agri value chain platform called Agrani. So we have been using this smart data pipeline for various use cases out of it. And we are also working on a product. I'm sure Dr. Lok might have introduced PigStack. So and for sustainability, resilience and sustainability. So in that also we are working. So such kind of smart geospatial data platforms are very critical in making these platforms more sustainable, right? So I'll just walk about. Architectures are, again, it's very. We can't have any best architecture or a standard architecture. So every organization or every developer community, or every developer can come up with their own architecture. But any architecture which can be scalable, robust, can ingest any kind of data sets, can fuse, combine, and generate various insights, will be a preferred architecture. So if you talk about the architecture which we are actually following at Leeds Next Tech, so we have a physical layer at the bottom where you can scale up the infrastructure vertically or horizontally. So we use a cloud native architecture like Kubernetes and Docker. So where every Docker is like an instance, right? Where it has a specific computing power and memory, and so you can scale up either vertically or horizontally using load balancers based on the different use cases. Let's say if you're processing or ingesting 1 terabyte of data, for example, so you might need a memory intensive instances of, let's say, maybe a 256 GB RAM or something. But you are computing it depends on the scale at which you are operating, right? You're operating and let's say you're working on a specific district level for a specific season, right? So time period is also very important. So spatio-temporal analysis is one of the important factors to consider in the infrastructure level also. If you are working on a time series analysis at a district level, you might need more computing power. Maybe, let's say, for example, a 256 GB RAM with 8 cores. But let's say you're working at a state level or maybe it's a country level. So you might need to scale up that based on the amount of data. Let's say the data can be maybe a 200 TB, or it depends on the time period also, of course. So then you need to scale up. So how do we scale up? So we can't manually keep scaling up the devices, right? So it's like you need to take a call. There's a manual intervention. But what we do is automatically the platform has a capability to, based on the data size, there's the adaptive technology. We are using that adaptive process where it can, with the first instance, it estimates automatically how much computing power is required to process certain amount of data, right? So based on that, automatically the platform will scale up or down the resources. So of course, cost is also one of the important factors in considering it. So you can't spin up instances and keep running it continuously, because it will also affect the cost, right? So we need to take care of that aspect as well. So the platform should be any platform, any geospatial or not only geospatial platform per se. These days, everyone is working in data science, machine learning. You are aware of ChatGPT. So just imagine the kind of the ChatGPT today is available, but the kind of data which is fed into the system to make it usable. So it needs a huge computing power, right? So again, there's one more story is connected to that. How much of computing power or how much of energy it is consuming. So here we are talking about today green technology. So that also we need to take care of it. So that's a different topic we'll discuss some other time. But considering today's discussion on the developing the platforms, so you need to have, the platform has to be scalable, be it geospatial platform or be it a traditional data science, or building a deep tech model where convolutional neural networks or using any deep learning libraries. It doesn't matter, or your in-house proprietary algorithms or models. So the platforms should have a capability to scale up, which can handle the data sets fed into the system. So they should have in computing power. So now how do we be able to achieve this one? Like you have a distributed architecture, right? So when you have a physical server or when you have a cloud computing, be it AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, so the platform should scale up leveraging this cloud computing and adaptively increase or decrease the instances to monitor the cost also. So we need to consider all these aspects. So that's on the infrastructure side. Now moving to the data layer, right? So as we spoke about the data side, so like we talked about IoT data sets, that's the bottom up data. So we are capturing this data at the in situ level. Now we have a drone data sets or remote sensing data sets, Earth observation data sets. We are capturing at the top down side. So we'll be able to combine this bottom up and top down up data sets, and we'll be able to generate the insight. So the platform has a data lake or a data catalog where it can federate or ingest data sources from multiple places or multiple sources like IoTs, sensors, be the sensors at the field level or farm level, or sensors at a regional scale or a district level. So based on different use cases, or maybe weather stations. So the platform should have the capability to ingest that in different data formats, right? So every sensor or every device will generate data in different formats, right? So you should be able to collate, transform the data into a uniform format where the system can understand. So it has to come up with specific format, like be it CSV files. Some sensors can generate a log files, so which has to be transformed into meaningful formats like a CSV or Excel, for example. Just to take example, or you should be able to ingest the data into a database store in form of a table. Now the satellite imageries are generated in form of images, right? Like raw reflectance values. So you should be able to process them, and then you should be these are like GeoTIFF images you store on a file system. So now you should be able to fuse these data sets. So any platform should have a capability to overlay or combine these data sets, transform into the data type which the platform can understand or analyze it for analytical purposes. So this is the raw data, convert that raw data into process data, which is in a specific format where the platform agrees or understands, and we'll make this data available to the data scientist or analyst to consume and come up with the analysis. That's the idea of any data at the data layer. If anyone is building a platform, they should consider these aspects. So the data pipeline, the data layer which we have built has the capabilities to consume this IoT data sets, satellite imageries, drone imageries, which is the top-down approach, demographic data sets, socioeconomic data sets, and third-party data sources, and convert, and extract them, transform them, and load into a specific data formats. So that's the idea of this data catalog. Also, one more thing to consider is the federation. So these days there are various data sources being generated by European space agencies like Copernicus, NASA, Japan, JPL. I mean, there are so many, JAXA, of course. So there are various sources, or even let's say drone is like in-house. Everyone has their in-house capabilities to generate data sets or mobile applications. So the platforms should be able to catalog or federate these data sets and keep making the data sets available so that it can be readily available for the analysis purposes. And again, so one more factor we need to consider is when you start ingesting that amount of data, you need to consider, let's say if you're doing analysis at a pan-India level, you're considering your time series data. It's a huge amount of data you're storing, so it is affecting your cost. So do we really need to store the data, or you can leverage the cloud native? So that's where the cloud native functionalities comes into picture. So these are the aspects to be considered. Now, if you move to the processing layer, so you have this data, you transformed it, you load it into a specific format where your entire community has agreed upon. So now you create a generic feature store where you can store all these data sets into kind of features and make these data sets available for modeling, right? So models that can be, as I mentioned, all the computational models, like be it statistical models or be it machine learning, deep learning models. So the data sets should be fed, the model should be able to consume these data sets in the desired format. Let's say if we talk about a deep learning model, maybe be it, CNN model or be it multi-layer perceptron. So if you are using a TensorFlow, just an example, if you're using a TensorFlow, so it understands tensors or an NumPy multi-dimensional arrays. So you should be able to transform this GeoTIFF images into a NumPy arrays. So the platform should have the capability to consider that. Now, that's on the modeling side. So the models, once the models are available, models understand the specific data sets, the objects or the features will be fed into the models for different use cases. Now, geoprocessing. So when you talk about geospatial platforms, the platform should have the capability of geoprocessing. So geoprocessing of various types, like be it simple example, raster analysis. The platform should have the capability to generate rasters, do some basic, band math calculation, raster calculations, able to generate new rasters based on some computations, or you will be able to clip the rasters or zonal statistics, or you will do generate rasterize or vectorize. So various geoprocessing tools or various geoprocessing functionalities should be enabled in the platform, right? And then model repositories, right? So when you are trying to solve, or when you're trying to create a platform, so the models, the platform should have the capability to create a repository of models, and based on different use cases, the models has to be popped up, and then the platform should be able to suggest these are the models suitable for specific use cases, right? Again, that's a different topic altogether. So we'll talk about on that, like, AutoML, so how the models has to be suggested, what are the different use cases of that. We'll get into that later part. But considering this use case, we are talking about geospatial platforms. So the platforms should have the capability to suggest the models, whatever models available in the repository of the in data lake. So that's the idea of this processing engine. So now so you have all these components available. So how do you make them available to the analytics purpose, right? So you have this models, you have this data sets available, you have this geoprocessing capabilities. So there's an API layer comes on top of it, right? So when you expose these APIs, again, this is not like a de facto standard or something that you have to build APIs every time, but it's just the architecture which we are following at Nextech, or any scalable platform data pipeline needs to be followed. Like maybe someone might have heard like Databricks or Apache, Spark, or there are various these days AutoML platforms or various data science tools available out there. So every tool exposes APIs for different use cases, right? So any platform should have the capabilities to expose the APIs for be it analytics or be it models, so that they can be consumed at the client side, be it a web interface or be it again a Python application also. Let's say data scientists are, they say they have capability to write a Python script, so they'll be able to call these models or call this geoprocessing tools and then perform. And you have the data sets available, you have the geoprocessing tools available, or you have the models available. They can call this and then perform the analysis for their application, different use cases. So that's why you have to have this API layer to expose them. So now once you have this API layer available, so the final layer is a presentation layer, right? So what kind of use cases or what kind of output you can provide, right? So it's at the presentation, because end of the day, the user interacts with this presentation layer. The rest all is sitting at the back end, which is not visible actually. So whatever has been explained. So the end of the important aspect which matters is the presentation layer. So presentation again can be of different. So when you have these APIs, so it becomes very easy to expose them into different systems, right? Let's say you can create a very good interface using a web dashboard, or you can build a mobile application based on use cases if you want to give it your users are at the consumer level, or you wanted to generate there's scientists or researchers who wanted to use it and generate some analytical reports, or you can expose them and you can generate reports in real time, or you wanted to build some expert systems, or be it like desktop based systems, or you can create geoportals where you can consume when we talk about geospatial platforms, there is OGC standards actually we follow, web map services, web processing services, web coverage services. So there are various services or standards needs to be made available when you're building such portals or dashboards, so that the interoperability is maintained, right? So let's say if we have to communicate, or if you have to make these data sets available to other platforms, so the platform should be able to communicate with each other with they agree upon a standards which are set by OGC in the context of geospatial community. So the platforms should be able to provide web map services, web coverage services, web processing services, web map services in the form of a tile layers also. Be if it is raster layers, or let's say you wanted some administrative boundaries, right? The platform should be able to serve the GeoJSON files. That's on the geoportal side. So of course, you can combine all these things and come up with a decision support systems, right? Which we just talked about, which enables the decision makers or researchers to come up with more insights. So that's the idea of a standard or a robust or scalable geospatial data pipeline or a platform which you can build which has the capabilities of ingesting multiple data sets and processing. So what are the use cases of this, geospatial data platforms, right? So there are a number of applications, but we'll just go through a couple of use cases like in agriculture. So how at Leeds Nextech we are using this data pipeline or geospatial platform in a couple of these use cases, right? So agriculture is one of them, disaster management is one of them, smart cities, and sustainability, right? So in agriculture, so we are using this pipeline for real-time stage-wise crop health stress monitoring, right? So as we talk about, there are various data sets we ingest. We use it for coming up with a crop health. So there are indices, of course. There are vegetation indices, multiple vegetation indices. There are 22, 21 indices which we calculate in real time. So we are using that to come up with the crop health is one of the application, but there are various applications which we do. So in real-time stages crop health monitoring, we can use this one. That is one. Of course, pest and disease monitoring. So you can generate alerts and advisories to farmers or end users based on these things, right? It can be used in crop classifications and acreage mapping. So they can use this for yield estimations, right? So let's say we talked about the models, various models or repository of models. You can use this for giving yield estimation reports, right? Of course, so you have drone data repositories or you have IoT data sets. You can also use it for quality assaying and grading. So these are the couple of use cases, but again, we are not confining to only this one. So based on the requirements, we can always come up with different use cases and keep working on it. So disaster management, so which is one of the critical aspects, of course, considering the climate change. So disaster management, preparedness, mitigation. These are some of the aspects where we can use this geospatial platforms, smart geospatial platforms. Like one is like multi-hazard analytics for hotspot analysis. It can be when we talk about multi-hazards, it can floods, drought, landslides, earthquake, forest fires. So any kind of hazard can be, the geospatial platforms can be used, right? So we can come up with a risk layer, we can come up with hazard layer, and we can exposure. Based on this, we can quantify the risk, and then so we can use these platforms for various use cases like that. So hotspot risk analysis and forecast. Of course, early warning systems. So we just talked about early warning systems, generating alerts using IoT sensors. Let's say monitoring the water levels, or let's say monitoring the toxicity of some dump yard. If there's any hazardous or chemicals, we can monitor them. So various use cases in early warning systems, you can use it, of course. In evacuation analytics. So that is also one of the major in terms of disaster preparedness, mitigation measures. We can use it for. Smart cities. So smart cities is also one of the major applications of geospatial platforms, right? You can use it for crowd monitoring. So you can create geofences if there are some events happening. So recently we have, everyone, like G20 summit happened, and recently there's a trade show happened, MotoGP happened. I'm sure government might have leveraged geospatial technologies for monitoring the green corridors and various use cases. So without that, it will be very difficult to address. In surveillance, various use cases, the governments or police department might have used IoTs or drone data sets for. So this is one of the examples. Crowd monitoring is one of the examples. Noise measurement. So it can be specific again to commercial building levels, or it can be at a specific regional level or a city level. So noise measurements, they can use this one. Smart parking is one of the major use cases where geospatial platforms can be used, be it like mobile applications, be it IoT sensors. So this is one of the major applications. Water quality management, waste management, and location analytics is some of the areas where geospatial platforms can be leveraged. Sustainability is one of the major use cases where geospatial platforms can be leveraged. So air quality and pollutant monitoring, forest fire detection, water quality monitoring, and CO2 emissions for carbon sequestration. Different, of course, biodiversity. There are various, of course, applications or use cases like biodiversity, habitat analysis, ecosystems. So everywhere, of course, geospatial platforms can be used. The spatio-temporal analysis, come up with different use cases. So these are a couple of use cases where at Leeds Nextech we are working on, and we keep working and enhancing the platform. So that's on the applications of geospatial platforms in different use cases like agriculture, disaster management, smart cities, sustainability, and a couple of other issues, right? Yeah, so thank you. That's end of my talk. Yeah. We open for the Q&A. Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are now.
So sorry, sir. I actually lost the entire internet connection, so I logged in again.
Yeah, no
I just got
issues.
disrupted. Yeah. So thank you for the presentation. I have few questions, and we'll start with the first one. In this particular field of IoT, as we are discussing the innovative technologies that can be used for for combating climate change, what do you propose as the technological challenges while we are trying to incorporate IoT?
Yeah, so that's a very pertinent question. It's a good question in terms of see. Let me address that in the context of limitations. Like when we talk about IoT per se, it's like first thing is this: is scalability is one of the major problems, right? So when you and the considering this specific problem statement of climate change, so at regional level, a specific scale, you can use IoTs, but if you wanted to use IoT as it is, so there it's a limitation. But the important aspect you can consider here is IoT can be used for understanding the sampling techniques, or you can use it for coming up with different parameters which can be scaled up using other aspects of it. So as I mentioned earlier, that's what you have to fuse or combine, blend multiple technologies together, be it like drone or be it IoT. So you can't just leverage on IoT per se, right? So it's only good at specific level. Let's say if you are using IoT in a manufacturing unit, or maybe a plant, or specific to a commercial space, it is good. But if you wanted to plan and use IoT at a large scale level, let's say you wanted to implement at a state level or a country level, it's infrastructure wise it is very difficult to manage, one thing. And there are a lot of bandwidth, there are other issues, technological issues comes into picture. So what I suggest is it has to be blended with other technologies, especially in the context of climate change. Hello, I think you're on mute, Dr. Juhi.
Hello, Dr. Juhi. Dr. Juhi.
Ma'am, I think Juhi ma'am is facing a network issue.
Yeah, yes. I think she's facing network issues. Thank you, Bharat sir. So there is another question. I am actually joining through Renu ma'am's laptop now. It's completely crashed. I'm not able to connect my internet. But yeah, another question. It's actually about the blockchain technology. Somebody has asked that whether do you think like blockchain chain technology would be useful for us in combating climate change or like promoting environmental conservation, will that be helpful in any aspect?
See, again, it's an application side, right? Any technology, uh, of course, can be leveraged, but at what level? Is it like the critical component, the core component to address this climate change? If you ask, then it may be no. But if you wanted to, let's say, for addressing the climate change, the core problems can be associated with like blockchain. Like for example, let's say if you take context of climate financing or climate risk financing, right? So in financial sector, like let's say insurance is one of the blades, like parametric insurance, one of the use cases, or even banking side. So in those aspects, blockchain can be integrated. One is that in the context of security, right? Because if you talk about even IoT also, there are huge devices are being connected over the internet, right? The security aspect is one of the you can consider that. So in the context of security, of course, you can use blockchain. In the context of climate risk financing, you can use blockchain. In the context of transactional systems, you can use blockchain, right? Of course. So in this climate change, also, if you're generating various data sets using different sensors, you're leveraging cloud technologies. So there, of course, you can apply blockchain. So but blockchain per se cannot solve the climate change problem. But you can use in the process of building systems which can solve the climate change.
Which can solve the problem, but they can be a help, additional help, or
Of
add
course,
on to the main existing technologies.
to maintain the sanctity of the data, let's say, right? So
Good.
there are IoT data sets which are generating the data, right? So you
Yes.
can so that no one can tamper the data sets, or there are sensors. There's edge computing. People are unlike these days. Of course, there are many space tech companies launching the lower LEO satellites or different space satellites for different use cases. A lot
Yes.
of data is being generated. So how do you know the sanctity of the data? How do you maintain the authenticity of the data or the data security? So in those contexts, blockchain can be applied.
Can be used. Agree. That'll be all, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining, and I congratulate you for the presentation. It was very well said and presented. You were very fluent with all your work.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks again, Amity, for giving us the opportunity and for Leads Next Tech to be part of this 1 month certification course.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. All the
All our
best.
pleasure. All our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next, for all my participants, I would like to inform that our third speaker is in some emergency and will not be able to join us today. So the third presentation and the third speaker extempore is completely cancelled for now. And moving ahead, I have my assessment link for today, and it's in the chat box. Everybody is requested to please submit it. And additionally, in the next 5 minutes, I'll be submitting a link for a quiz. So you all need to submit that quiz, complete that quiz by under your name, and I will record the first 3 winners. Post that tomorrow in our validatory session, you'll be awarded with the prizes. Thank you so much. Give me 5 minutes. I'll try to connect my laptop, and I'll be giving you the link for the main quiz. Till then, you can just complete this assessment. Everyone, please just complete this assessment. Till then, I'll just give you the quiz link quickly.
I request to all the participants, please complete your assessment, and within 5 minutes, we'll submit the link for quiz.
So we request all the participants to please join the quiz. The link has been shared in the chat box. Please use that link and join for the quiz. Also, let us know if you're not able to open the link or if there is any problem with the link.
Everyone, I'll be waiting for the next 2 minutes only. Those who wants to actually play the quiz, quickly join in the next 2 minutes, and I'll start uniformly for everyone so that everyone gets equal amount of time. And post in the next 30-35 minutes, the link would be closed and the quiz would be submitted. So please take care while joining quickly.
So participants are requested to please click on the link that has been shared in the chat box to initiate the quiz from their side. Please do that. And if you're not able to open it, do let us know by dropping a message in the chat box itself.
Additionally, please complete your assessment. Participants would be given the participatory certificates only after completing the attendance for all the days and also completing all the assessments. The quiz winners would be awarded on the valedictory. So please take care about all of this regarding your certificates issue. Going by the participant number that I have in the meeting, I have around 50%, 60% of the participants in the quiz now. So I'll be starting it, and in the next 35 minutes, it'll be closed. So quickly finish it. Everybody is please requested to complete their assessments and also submit their quiz on time. And with my HOD's permission and all the participants who are present here, I'll be giving the formal vote of thanks now. It is with the deep sense of gratitude and satisfaction that I stand before all of you to offer a heartfelt vote of thanks for gracing the last session of our certificate course on green technologies for mitigating climate change, which is organized by AIES from 31st August to 29 September, and it's in hybrid mode in collaboration with IMD, New Delhi, and Leeds Nextech Private Limited. This event not is actually finishing, but marks the beginning of a transformative journey towards understanding and addressing the pressing issue of climate change through the lens of innovative green technologies. At the outset, I, on behalf of AIS, would like to convey my deep regards and thanks to Honorable Founder President Dr. Ashok Kumar Chauhan sir and Chancellor MET University Dr. Atul Chauhan sir for their continuous guidance and encouragement. It is their vision and leadership that has placed MET University among the top universities in the world. Our heartfelt thanks goes to Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor of MET University, Uttar Pradesh, for her visionary leadership and commitment to academic excellence. She has been guiding all of us and will continue to do so. I would like to thank and appreciate our Professor D.K. Bandyopadhyay, Chief Advisor FPO and Chairman of MET Law School and mentor of AIS, for his enlightening and his enlightening support. We extend our sincere appreciation to Renu Dhupar, Assistant Director AIS, for providing us with insightful introduction to the 1 month into certificate course and guiding us throughout. Her words have set the tone, and we are grateful for her contribution. We are truly honored and privileged to have had all the speakers for the session, starting with Dr. Lal Singh and Mr. Bharat Sentipalli. Unfortunately, the third speaker could not join us for today, but we definitely look forward to meet him in person in any other offline events. Their presence added immense value and significance to our gathering. We are deeply grateful for the time and insights you all have shared with us. Your expertise and wisdom have not only enriched us personally, but have also provided us with a broader perspective on the theme. We extend our sincere gratitude to IMD, India Meteorological Department, New Delhi, and Leeds Nextech India Private Limited for their invaluable collaboration in making this course a reality. Your expertise, support, and dedication have played a pivotal role in shaping the foundation. Our esteemed faculty members, experts, resource persons, staffs, we thank all of you for your willingness to guide and inspire our participants throughout the journey. To our participants, your presence signifies your dedication to advancing knowledge and taking steps towards a more sustainable future. Your curiosity and enthusiasm to learn will undoubtedly fuel meaningful discussions and collaborations during this course. We express our gratitude to all the honored guests and all those who have joined us today to mark this session, and your presence is a testament to the importance of addressing climate change and the role of green technology in doing so. I especially thank the people who have been the backbone of this event, IT and media team of MET, the team who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure smooth organization of this course. Your dedication and attention to details have not gone unnoticed. Lastly, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to each one of you present here today. Your participation has enriched this session, setting a positive tone. As we journey forward, let us remember that the impact of this course extends beyond these walls. The knowledge gained, insight shared, and connection forged will contribute to a more sustainable future for all of us. Let us embrace this opportunity to make a difference and continue this difference forward. Thank you once again, and I wish all of you all the best with all your future endeavors. Thank you so much. Renu ma'am, can we close the session now?
Thank you, Dr. Juhi, for this vote of thanks and for successfully conducting the whole 1 month certificate course. So, my dear participant, tomorrow is the valedictory session, which will be held in the offline mode in F3 Seminar Hall from 2:30 to 4 p.m. So, I request all the participants, please be there because tomorrow there will be the prize distribution for the winners of the quiz competition. And second is there will be also the certificate distribution. So, please be there for the next and the last conclusion of the valedictory session of the 1 month certificate course. So I thank you, Dr. Anamika, Dr. Juhi, for your endless support for planning and for the implementation of this 1 month certificate course. And also my heartiest thanks to the IT support, Mobin sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your support for the conduction of this online program. Thanks to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mobin sir, please
Thank you.
close the
Thank you.
session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mubin sir.
Thank you, ma'am.